Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of GLP's 10 out of 10. And today we have with us Manny Treeson, or Manny, as he's known. Based in Los Angeles, Manny is a founding partner and principal at NYX Design. With an MFA in lighting design from Carnegie Mellon University, Manny's career started out in theatre and live television, where he's designed projects for ESPN, NBC, the History Channel, BET, and the Disney Channel, amongst many more. Since then, though, his career has taken a distinct turn towards the world of live special events. He's worked with Microsoft for the last 14 years, launching a multitude of products and presentations. He's also designed keynote events for a large number of technology companies, including RSA, Amazon Web Services, Yahoo, and more. Manny's also been responsible for the design of numerous film premieres, including Shark Tale in Venice, Fantasia 2000 in London, New York, and Tokyo, and the largest Hollywood film premiere in history with Star Wars: The Force Awakens, that took over the entire city block and had celebrities and guests split into 3 different movie theaters, the El Capitan, the Kodak, and Mann's Chinese Theater, for simultaneous viewing. An absolute phenomenal event, and I'm sure many of you have probably seen the footage at the time. In 2010, Manny was honored with the Redden Award for Excellence in Corporate Event Lighting, and he's also a member of the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. Welcome, Manny Treeson.
Well, it's great to be here, Mark.
Fantastic to see you. How's lockdown treating you?
Lockdown. I live like a hermit, but it's, you know, in the scale of things, it's something we can endure so we can all get through this as sort of one society. So that's what we do.
We put up with the hairdressers being closed for longer than
yeah, case in point.
All right, so we have our 10 questions for you. So let's try and kick it off with the first one. So as we mentioned, you know, you've done a fantastic number of events and shows and styles in different genres all around the world. But going back to the beginning, what was your first show as a designer?
First show as a designer, you know, you do a whole bunch of things in college and kind of work your way through. But I think my first really significant professional show was actually a kickoff show for the Super Bowl. I'd moved to LA right out of school. Okay. And I had fallen in with a group at a downtown venue, and the Super Bowl was in Pasadena that winter. So within a few months of living in LA, through the way of being in the right place at the right time, which is so often the tale for anyone. Someone came to me and said, "We're doing a kickoff event for this whole Super Bowl weekend across all of Southern California. We're doing it here at this, this venue super well. Would you mind designing this sort of musical event that's going to happen in this big outdoor water court down in the middle of downtown LA venue?" So I think they called it Kickoff Friday or something like that for the Super Bowl. It was super fun.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. I mean, something like the Super Bowl, always exciting. There's always, so many events that are going on.
Exactly.
Great atmosphere.
And this was 1990. It was January of 93. So we're talking automated lighting was just starting to kind of really get into the hands of someone other than if you're designing Genesis. Right. We're like 4 or 5 years past that kind of introduction. And so, this was my first show that I got to design that had a whole bunch of automated fixtures, but I came at it from the point of view of a theater designer and someone who had done music, but not in the context of touring. So the way I communicated with my programmer was probably totally unique, but we were figuring that out at the time.
Right.
But yeah, it was just a total hoot because, I had a whole set of tools I would never have had in the theater. I mean, it was just a lot of technology that got thrown at me because I knew the room.
Right.
And it was I met people on that show that I'm still very tight with to this day,
What a fantastic opportunity.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Great one to start the resume off with.
It's not bad, is it?
So we mentioned that of course, the variety of events, the variety of venues, the variety of locations all around the world that you've traveled to. I'm sure that whilst there's been some massive successes, there's probably been a few occasions where it didn't quite go according to plan. So do you have any particular kind of Spinal Tap moments that you're able to share with us?
Well, Well, let's first say, let's say that we learn more when we fail than when we succeed.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
And I've had, we've all had lots of failures. So I've certainly swung and a miss. And I'm not afraid to swing for the fences, as the metaphor goes. And when you do that, sometimes you kind of spin all around in a circle because you miss and you land. But I think one of but when you ask me about Spinal Tap, I can't help but think of, I had this one event I was doing that was actually for Rob Reiner. It was like a night saluting Rob Reiner.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a roast. Billy Crystal hosted it. Some of the funniest stuff I ever heard in my life was said that night in that room. Really, because all his friends who were stars in all his movies got up and they roasted him. They all just were merciless. And it's, when you're that close with someone, that kind of comedy is super funny. Anyway, that aside, the lighting design part of it that was sort of a swing and a miss for sure is we were having Spinal Tap play at the end of the night. That was the big surprise, that the Spinal Tap boys were actually going to play.
Awesome.
So it is actually literally a Spinal Tap moment. And so I come in, I don't know, day 2. It's like a 4-day, 3-day show, a quick, load into the Beverly Hilton ballroom, rehearse, do it. And I think it was the morning that we're putting up some stuff the night before the show. And I come in, and the scenic guy was not a normal television scenic designer. He was more there's a little bit more, I'll just bring a bunch of stuff and make it work in the room kind of guy. Very nice, but not really one for measuring. Okay. Let's just start with that. Not really one for, actually I have this on my disc, writing out the measure and seeing what we have with it. And they built the stage too tall. And we had to, a Spinal Tap. So my lighting design revolved around vertical trusses,
right,
and a wall of ACL bars. I mean, over the top, just like a literal wall, but I needed these vertical trusses, and they needed to sit, because in that corner of the venue, you couldn't actually put anything, you couldn't hang anything. So it was all ground support. So we walk in, and the stage is maybe this far too full. So the truss was going to be straight through the roof of the Beverly Hilton, can't really build scenery than bigger than your room.
Right.
So, I'm looking at the guy going, but you knew it was like a 12-foot truss. Yeah. And you built the stage this tall. Yeah. There's not that much room. Yeah. Okay. It's like, how are we going to solve this? So what he ended up doing, because this is the nature of how he was, goes, I think I know what to do. And he literally opened up a Makita, that brilliant blue Makita case, opens up this Makita case, and pulls out a Sawzall. You know what a Sawzall is, right?
Right. Yep. Absolutely. And
he goes right to the stage decks and cuts out 1-foot square holes. And we dropped the truss through he built me like 6 holes in his deck. And I dropped it down. We actually had to add some, then we were too short, but then we got them up higher. We did some extension pipes, MacGyver did the rest of the way to the ceiling. And of course, we had to hang, drapes off. I mean, the whole scenic was built off these vertical towers that everything else attached to. But
unbelievable.
It wasn't 18 inches. It was just a foot too tall.
Right. Next time, was it measure once, cut, or measure twice, cut once? That's
yes.
Yeah.
I mean, a tape measure is an amazing tool. Right. I recommend it to everyone.
That's right. Yeah. Stick one in your pocket. That's right.
Yes, that's right.
Perfect. You'll be allowed through TSA with one. It's all right.
It's right. Yeah, it's nothing. It won't harm you.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Right. That's a great story. Great story. So our third question: what's the best piece of advice that anyone has ever given you, either professionally or otherwise?
Well, it actually it's a personal piece of advice, and it was a professional piece of advice, and it basically boiled down to this. Life and our industry in general is about working with other human beings. When you're an assistant designer, when I came up, I was an assistant for a long time. And you sit at a tech table in a theater, and you're next to the designer, the programmer, and you're tracking, doing this back in the days, you used to do tracking sheets and all that. But the point is, you're in close confines with people for 12 to 14 hours a day, 6-7 days a week. If you don't get along, nothing else works. Even if you have an idea, there's people, and I've been guilty of this certainly, where you have an idea in your head and you're just driving towards the design idea or the thing you want to do, and you get that tunnel vision, and somehow you can't hear when you're driving that hard. You can't hear everything else going on around you. truth is, no one wants to hang out with that human being. Not for 14 hours a day, and not for project after project after project. So it's a piece of professional advice, but also as a personal advice, it's understanding not only do you have to listen and respond and collaborate and work together, but you also need to just realize you need to laugh. Right. Nothing we're doing is going to actually affect anything in the history of time in any significant way. It's not that I don't love what I do, and I don't think what we do has value and entertains people. But let's face it, we're not writing the Magna Carta. We're, what we're doing is entertaining people, and that is a beautiful and wonderful thing. But it's not a hill to die on. There's a way to get there and achieve the goal and be a working family together in which everyone has a good, the journey is as much as important as the destination, as a cliche. But I think that's part of what I'm trying to say. It's that when you realize, and I watched the same person talk to a young group of students, and we were doing like a master class, and later we were together, and they said, someone said, what's the most important thing to do as an assistant? And they were super flippant, and it's a flippant answer. But they said, have good hygiene. Well, the point is, again, it's the same kind of idea. It's not nearly as deep or meaningful, but the idea is you have to, you're excellent. But that piece of advice about listening and making a good environment and moving forward and all of that actually was, even when things get heated to this day, I kind of slow myself down to say, you know what? There's another way to solve. There's always going to be another way to solve a problem.
Right. Be nice.
Yeah.
I guess. Be
nice. And also just be, karma's a real thing.
Right.
How you make your way in the world is as important as anything else.
Yeah. I completely agree. I'm a massive believer in karma. Very much so. Yeah. No, absolutely. That's great. That's great advice. And you're right. You are in close proximity with people for a very long period of time. And and that's important.
And everyone, even if someone is there, everyone wants, I have met very few people that don't want to actually do a good job. Right? Or be a good person. There's the odd human being, sure. But let's just make a general assumption. Everyone's a good human being. Everyone wants to do good.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just have to find another way to have that person have that and have the project get there.
Yes, that's right. Everybody wants the project to succeed. So
yeah. And if they don't, then you have to make a hard.
Right.
It's pretty rare.
There we go. Fantastic. Excellent advice. Excellent advice. Be nice, be collaborative, just be jolly, just be around.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Professionally, what would you say is your proudest achievement so far?
It's like the old joke about children. Oh, excuse me. Let me just make sure this thing's falling out. I think my proudest achievement is I do a lot of work for Microsoft and specifically for Xbox. And I do their, consumer facing, what I like to call corporate spectacular. It's a live television show. It's the rollout of all the new games. It's lots of effects and stuff and dynamic videos and, immersive lighting in the room and all that. And it's super fun project, and I've been doing it for a long time. But what I'm proudest of professionally is that I've been on this journey with this particular client for the whole time with the same basic group of people that we've been doing the show with for more than a decade. Started doing it in 2006. So that's, 14, 15 years at this point. And the thing is, I'm proudest of that journey. I can point to this show or that show where we did a thing that I really liked.
Yeah.
They're all great. I liked all the shows we've done, but the point is the people I do it with, it almost goes back to that last thing we're talking about. I just love them all. And I love the fact that we've just grown the show, and every year we do this show, we do it in a different way. I don't think we've ever done the same show year after year because of the nature of what Xbox is. We're reactive to what the intellectual property is they're rolling out. So if they're rolling out a Halo game or a Gears of War, whatever the game is we're rolling out that's really the hero of that year, we almost start to tailor a whole show around the 4 or 5 key moments.
Yes.
And one year we had a game, if you're a gamer, you would know it just came out, called Cyberpunk 2077. But one of the characters is voiced and performed by Keanu Reeves.
Okay.
So we had and the audience didn't know it. No one knew this. So we had a moment where we did a thing with a tracking piece of scenery and a whole moment at the end of the video. In the video, you see it's him. He pulls off his sunglasses. You hear that voice, and you reveal that that starring in the game is Keanu Reeves. That was our first sort of like hit this audience. They all start going crazy in the room and online. Everyone's watching online. You can see all of the after the fact when you go back and watch it. You can see everyone's really stoked, and that's great. People get stoked. If you're a gamer, you love games. You get stoked about these things.
Yeah.
Well, then at the end of it, then we do a thing that our creative director Aaron Williams had this really cool idea to fly part of the video screen and another. We had a multi-screen set, fly part of the set, and do this kind of really over the top sort of silhouette moment with him coming up with fog and stuff, and a whole nother video environment in which he's coming in, and we did that, and then we reveal him on stage. And like a lot of product rollouts, a celebrity in the room, well, it kind of went crazy and the room went nuts, and you have that kind of energy. It's super fun.
Yeah.
And someone yelled something out to him, and he stopped, and like, oh, they said, you take your breath away. No, you take my breath away. And he did a whole kind of Keanu thing about it. And then, we thought, oh, great, that moment landed. But we're doing a live television show, so we just keep pushing forward, right? We've done the thing. He's off. He's already in whatever his vehicle is, and he's left. And we have another 30, 40 minutes to show. We finished the show.
Yeah.
And, we're all focused on our job. So when the show comes down, we're still on camera because we're doing all this B-roll interview stuff. We're doing, we do hits like on like news networks right afterwards, right from the venue after the announcements, like any product rollout.
Okay.
And someone comes up and goes, we're really we kind of broke the internet. I go, what are you talking about? We broke the internet. And they start showing that this whole it's a viral thing. This happens all the time, but we've never done a thing in which we had a viral, moment quite like that.
Right.
And we didn't break the internet. Let's be honest. Keanu Reeves, who's the internet's boyfriend, he broke the internet. We just happened to be the ones that gave him a venue to do it in.
Right.
But we're on this journey where, we're making these kind of moments together, and I'm super proud of that team and that journey.
Yeah. The whole portfolio. I mean, it's certainly, it's obviously it's an absolute A-list brand, and I'm sure so many people have seen at least part of some of the presentations, if not been to one or watched one going through. They're always spectacular. They really are.
Right, and it comes out of a gaming show. It's so strange to talk about now that we're in lockdown. But this massive show in LA called E3, where all the major gaming, Sony and Nintendo, everyone kind of gathers together, and everyone shows off their stuff, and there's a big trade show floor, and but Xbox is different. They sort of leveled up at some point and started saying, yeah, we're going to anchor from here. There's a reason we do the show now. But they decided to do a show that was more about the fans than about the business. And I thought it was it gave us a license to sort of be more entertainment focused. I mean, it's entertainment, but to make it less of a businessy show and more of a let's have some fun with what we're doing kind of show. And we got a chance to kind of make a different looking kind of show, and it's for us it's been super fun.
Yeah, I bet so. I bet. Yeah, really go to town with it. Fascinating, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Congratulations. What do you normally do in your downtime when you're not away doing some of these shows, and we're not normally under lockdown, of course, but how do you
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was going to say I'm a real nature person.
Okay.
I love to hike. I love to kayak. I cycle. One of my main form of exercising is cycling. I'm a road cyclist. Don't understand mountain bikers at all. Mostly because I tend to fall down when I do it.
It hurts. Don't do it.
Yeah. I'm not good. The front end of a bike shouldn't be doing that. Anyway, all joking aside, I love nature. So my wife and I really like to, vacation not in big cities. We like to go somewhere really remote or relatively remote. And we love the Central Coast of California, but because we can do all those things there.
Right.
But I just like to be, so much of our life is hyper attention focus. When you're lighting a show, when you're working on a big production, you have to sweat all these details. You have to think about it. constantly. You know, what is the key light looking out like in camera? What's it looking like in the room?
Mm.
How bright is the back? You know, the list is endless. We all do it. Everyone that does this job. And it's just like there's constant visual input and you're making decisions constantly. And that's the job. And that's great.
Mm.
When I don't do that, I like to really go the other way.
Right.
I like to simply be somewhere and be, you know, I like to be present and experience a place as opposed to constantly personally interacting with it and manipulating it. Because what we do for work is manipulate environments.
Yes.
So what I would rather do is have the environment wash over me and be within that.
Right.
So
just sit back and relax and enjoy it. And
nothing is more gives me all the feels than being there's a little tiny, I mean, miniature tiny little cottage we like to run on the Central Coast that's got this little deck. There's nothing fancy about this place except for it is on the water.
Okay.
And I like to sit on this deck on this bay up in the middle of California and just, you know, let's be honest, have a nice glass of red wine made within 20 miles of where I'm sitting, enjoying that. The wine is of a place. I'm looking at this beautiful body of water. I have the sea air on me, all of that. This gives me all the feels.
Right. Just a completely different to work.
Yeah.
A great way to wind down, relax, collect your thoughts, you know, collect your energy, I guess.
Well, yeah, all of that. And also we have to allow for new ideas to enter into our minds as designers. And when we're in the churn of the work of our professional lives, what we're doing is we're occasionally reactive or we're leading, but we're in a cycle of churn of information. We're every day processing email, getting on Zoom calls, doing all this stuff where it's always, wait, here's a set, react to some crazy thing a client wanted, or whatever it is. What we're not doing, it's just allowing the mind to chill, to slow down, in which then other ideas can then, the quieter mind allows for new ideas to enter. And those new ideas then spark better design work on my part.
Right. Yeah.
Because when you're busy all the time and you're all stressed out about work, you're just not receptive to that, you know, listening to that kind of inner creativity.
Right. It doesn't come in as far as it should do into your mind and into your thought process. Yeah. Fascinating. There we go. Brilliant. We mentioned before that you've worked obviously around the world in lots of different places, lots of different venues. Do you have a particular venue that you like more than anywhere else?
I'm only pausing because I've been super fortunate. I've worked in a lot of great rooms. I think I have a super fondness for Red Rocks in Colorado outside of Denver.
Yep.
Not because it's easy, because it's not. Anyone that's worked there knows it's not an easy room. But it's a special place.
Right.
You know, it's the way the rocks come on either side of it, the way the backstage is basically I mean, they just built this perfect amphitheater into this natural bowl. I love that physical space. I love how it feels. And I love seeing, when I go to see music, I love to see music outside. I don't know why in particular that jives with me, but there's something really, I love going to, you know, like when, you know, you go to the Hollywood Bowl or you go to the Greek here in LA, but there's those kind of venues all over the country, whether it's Ravinia in Chicago or Tanglewood. We all know them. They're great venues outdoors. And there's something about that. Maybe it's because it's got a kind of a pastoral, there's something relaxing about being under the stars and watching a great artist perform.
Yeah. Having that combination.
Yeah, no, it's great. So for me, I think Red Rocks is a pretty spectacular space on this earth, especially to see music.
Great. It is absolutely spectacular. A brilliant choice. Brilliant choice. Really is. So we'll take that. Red Rocks
all right.
in Colorado. Okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, we mentioned that we've been in lockdown, in and out of different versions of lockdown for a little while. Now, if you were only able to have one musical artist or one album with you to listen to during an extended lockdown, who would that be?
I must confess to being like, my wife has a phrase. She calls herself being a serial obsessionalist. She gets totally focused on one thing for a period of time, and then she totally cycles on to the next thing. She's like, and but an album I come back to, the album I always come back to, I think Peter Gabriel's So is a masterwork album. I've been a fan of Peter Gabriel since early Genesis days, early Lamb Lifestyle on Broadway is amazing. He'd always done these concept albums. And I think his fascination with world music really speaks to me. I just love how he spent his whole career finding other sounds, other kinds of percussion, other outside the Western experience and bringing it into Western popular music. Yes. I find that super compelling. And when I was young, I think it was 85, 86, when that first So tour was going around, I saw that tour at a shed outdoors in Maryland, Meriwether Post, I think it was called. And I still remember that concert.
Okay.
I remember almost every lighting cue of that concert. Now, we all have the story of what was that show you saw that made you, that even if you were in the industry, which I already was, but you were like, oh yeah, I'm on the right path.
Right.
When I grow up, I want to be doing that.
Yeah.
And I think Jonathan Smeaton was the designer of that. And I just think, for those people that don't know it, this is a tour that used camera boom cranes with a few Verilights at the end of it. This is, early days of Verilight. So I think there was 2 VL1s at the end or 3 VL1s at the end of this. And it was manipulated, imagine like a jib camera, except for at the end of this long arm, you have a couple of moving lights and it's on a dolly track. And there was 4 or 6 of them, I'm trying to remember. And they were manipulated by a human being. So you have this automated light at the end of a moving 300 sweeping thing that's manipulated by a human operator.
Yeah.
And there was something both organic and robotic and modern and non-traditional concert technology, all of that together. And then with his performance and what he was doing artistically, because again, as lighting designers, we're reactive, we're reflecting. I once had a designer once say to me, we're the ripples in the pond. We're not the primary artist. The primary artist is the artist, the playwright, the filmmaker, the principal artist. But as designers, we're collaborators, and our job is to evoke where they're going, to create that framework, to create that larger resonance to the core work. And what Jonathan did, and I don't know him at all, one day I'd love to meet him and just tell him how brilliant I think he is he just found this way to create this physicality. There's a song, and I'm going on about it, forgive me, Mark, for going on about it, but there was a piece that, Lay Your Hands on Me is a wonderful Gabriel tune. And in the middle of it, he would always crowd surf. He would, you could never imagine someone doing this today, but at the time he would do it in every show. He would eventually fall back and the audience would know what happened. They would have security out there. And then he would keep singing for like 5 minutes as he gets passed around this theater. And I mean, I had heard he had done it. I had read, stories from Rolling Stone about it, Legends of Lore and all that. And I'd heard live albums. But then when you actually see him do it and be in the room when it happens, and you realize that this is viscerally this connection between him and his audience, this faith. Right. He's singing about, faith, and he's having faith in the audience to
carry him. Right.
To carry him. Yeah. And then so the lighting starts to peel off the stage physically because they're in these dollies and they're over the stage. So there's this connection between what he's doing and what the physical lighting's do. Oh, it was, and when you realize that the whole environment is, now we throw on the term immersive all the time. But in 1986, it
was a different thing.
The show happened down there and the audience sat over here.
Yeah.
Those things you don't, people would break the plane occasionally, but not like what happened in that room. And they would do this every night.
Yeah.
And that album, it's, it's a spectacular album.
Yes. Yeah. No, I agree. I'm a Gabriel fan as well. So yeah, I agree with a lot of that. I didn't get to see So, but I've seen lots of the photographs, and yeah, you're absolutely right.
Did you see the tour that came after that, Secret World?
Secret World. Well, I'll tell you a funny story. I was going to tell you outside of the interview, but I'll tell you now. It's just the other night, it was on Monday night. We're doing this on what are we today? Thursday. I think it was either Monday or Sunday night. I actually went back and Secret World Live was one of my most favorite shows ever. And they've got the recording from when they did it down in Italy. And I put it on and I was watching it again. And it's an another masterpiece of a concert. It really is.
Yeah. And the designer for that was, I believe, Vince Foster. And he did an amazing job on that show. Yes. Because the way the technology, I mean, they had was like, again, immersive, because the stage was in the middle of the floor of the arena and everyone was all the way around. So the show happened in the center, but the audience was completely surrounding them. It was a great show.
It was fantastic. Yeah. And if I remember rightly, it was I don't think it was the first, but one of the first shows to use the original Whole Hog one console, which of course, changed the way of programming.
100%, I believe it was. And so much about that show. And of course, I talked about earlier about being on the journey with the same set of people. There's an artist who's been on his journey with a lot of those same David Rhodes and Larry Fast used to play keyboards for him. I don't think he did in that tour. I'm trying to think who else was Tony Levin. So David Rhodes and Tony Levin, and then different percussionists would come in and out. But it was like a chord, and they when you're that tight as a band, you get that kind of show. Yeah,
that's right. Absolutely phenomenal musicians at the top of their game. Always.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Fascinating. And you're right. Yeah. Jonathan does, I know he's retired now, but an absolute, he's got a fantastic back catalogue of brilliant shows that he designed as well. Never afraid to take the bull by the horns and do something different.
I mean, totally different. Exactly. And gorgeous.
Yeah, fascinating. Brilliant. Peter Gabriel it is then. Right. Now, if you were able to spin back time and go and visit the teenage Manny Treeson, and you could offer him one piece of advice, what would that be?
As a teenager, probably not this dissimilar to how I am now. I'm just older, and because I'm older, I'm slower. I was a lot like a pinball. I was just bouncing off the walls. I was I was unrestrained. And if I gave myself any advice, it would be to take a moment, first breathe, then think, then speak.
Right.
Because I don't think I did it in that order back then, no.
That's right. The order is important. All three things are important. The order.
Yeah.
Most important.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, I think I'd be guilty of speaking before breathing more than once.
That's right. Fantastic. There we go. That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. Yeah. Lesson to be learned there for sure.
Yeah.
To be remembered. Now, okay. So our next question, if you were able to sit down for a cup of coffee with somebody, anybody at all, could be living, could be past, who would that be?
My grandmother.
Okay.
Because I never knew my grandmother. I mean, it's very personal. So, I mean, really both of my grandparents, it's a connection that, when you're born after your parents have passed, you hear stories, you see pictures, you do all those things, but never having them, and having tons of friends that have their whole lives in which they have 2 or 3 generation of people that extended families like that. I didn't grow up in that, and I'm not complaining. I want to be clear. I'm not, it's not woe is me, but I didn't have that, so it's something I wish I had.
Right. So go and find out about that history within your family, and
and just have that extended connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Perfect answer.
Yeah.
It really is. Brilliant. And just like that, we're actually already up to our final question.
Oh dear.
Yeah, that's right. It all seems to go past so quickly. So
It does.
this is one of my favorites. So once we're finished with the interview, your phone's going to ring and it's going to be Team USA, and they're going to call you up for the Olympics. It's your time to shine for America. Now, they could be calling you up for either the Summer Games or the Winter Games. But the question is, what's the sport they're calling you up for? What are you going to have a go at?
Well, as I said earlier, I do love to cycle. So I'd love to, you grow up watching your heroes, if you like sport. And, I watch a lot of cycling as well as doing it. So yeah, I would love to do road cycling in the alternate universe, which that was true, because anyone that knows me would know I may enjoy doing it, but I'm not the most athletic human being on the face of the earth.
As long as you participate, that's
Yes.
the important part, right? Isn't that part of the Olympics motto? It's participation.
Yeah.
So.
That's right. Yeah, I'm more likely to be the road cyclist from Guam.
Oh, right.
Than I would be from, like a powerhouse nation like England. Like everyone finishes, it's all done.
Right.
They're starting to, roll up the banners and
and in he comes. Well, as long as you make it before the closing ceremony of the Olympics, that
it's fine, right?
You still get a participation piece of paper, I'm sure. So you were still there. There we are. Fantastic. We'll take cycling. Manny, this has been fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing, obviously, details about your work. Thanks for finding some time for us as well. It's just absolutely brilliant to have the conversation with you. Thank you.
Well, thank you for inviting me. This was a delight.
Great. I look forward to catching up with you soon. But until then, stay safe, stay well, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.